you often talk about the distinction between psychological wound and a spiritual one. For someone
Mhm.
sitting in the gray area of their life, how do you define the difference between PTSD and a moral injury?
That's a terrific question, and I appreciate you asking it because I think a lot of people really don't really understand the difference between the two. And there may be a lot of people in your audience that don't really know what moral injury is at all. PTSD is a fear based trauma. In other words, something happened to you that created trauma. Usually, your life was put into danger or some type of big traumatic event. It may have been verbal abuse. It could even have been physical abuse. It could be some type of assault. And that caused you to react in a certain way to where now there's a lot of paranoia. There's worry about security, about safety. Uh, I know that was the case for me having experienced combat in Afghanistan. It wasn't long after I became a Navy chaplain that I went to Afghanistan with a Marine infantry battalion, and I was in a few firefights where people shot at me, and so when something like that happens, that can trigger that fear-based trauma that we know of as PTSD. Moral injury is different. Moral injury is when we choose to do something, sometimes at the orders of someone in authority over us, or maybe we choose to fail to prevent something, like we choose not to intervene, but the result of which goes against everything that we believe in morally, ethically, and especially spiritually, to the point after we see the results of what happened, we just become consumed with guilt and shame and feel like that we're no longer lovable or forgivable.
I think that's a great distinction because, you know, I'm going to give my example. I hadn't go through combat, but I believe PTSD in my case would be of going through surgeries and that fear based, moral injury. Really understand that part because sometimes we don't stand up for what we believe and then it hurts us more than if
Mhm.
we actually did. So I like that. And in your experience as a Navy chaplain, how does experiencing a deep trauma after or challenge a person's foundational beliefs and spirituality?
Trauma can really affect our spirituality, whether it is moral injury or PTSD, because then we begin to second guess ourselves. We begin to second guess our choices. We begin to wonder if God could really love us because we made the choices that we made, or could God forgive us because of the choices that we made? Um, or we may get angry and say, how could God allow something like that? If a God could allow something like that, I don't want any part of him. Sometimes that's how people react with that. And I have seen all of those reactions while talking to Marines, sailors, Coast Guardsmen, or their family members as they went through different types of trauma.
I think that's important because it really does affect you. But at the same time, if you go deeper into your faith, I think it's going to answer that question by itself. I think it's something that for me was answered.
Hmm.
I have made wrong decisions in my life, but I know that God is so forgiving. He has forgiven us for so much that I know that He's loved. But at the moment when you're going through it, you don't know that. You just have to get past that fire and see beyond for you to understand that He's going to love you either way. You
Right.
just have to go through His laws the best you can.
Yes. For some, that's a real struggle. And so, what I try to do is I try to guide them back to that path of restoration, to understanding that there isn't anything that God will stop loving you for. There isn't anything that God won't forgive you for. Um, and but for some people, they especially in moral injury, they begin to feel like they have, because of the decisions that they've made, they have become corrupt. They feel like maybe they've been infected with evil. One person told me that they felt like their soul had been shattered and they're just constantly rubbing against the broken glass in their soul, in their emotions. Um, and so from there, um, for many people, their faith is deep enough and resilient enough that they can remind themselves how much God loves them. They can go to his word. But others, because just the trauma is so deep that they need a little extra help to get them back on that path of forgiveness and restoration.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with the people that you love. I also created a community called Boy in the Storm where we can share a journey together. So click the link down in the description and join the movement.